Right. It's zero still, so I'll just wait for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Hi, guys. Good evening. Welcome to another live session of Facebook Live on DogSpot. Today, we have Daniel with us, who's the founder of Chefs and Dogs. He's based out of Australia, and he'll be telling us about raw diet and the benefits and how his experience has been and why he started his company. So, hi, Daniel. Welcome to DogSpot.
Hello, how you going? Thank you for having me on. So, as you said, my name's Daniel, and I'm the founder of Chefs and Dogs. So, what we do here in Australia, we provide fresh meals for your dogs, healthy treats, so like single ingredient treats like your beef livers, with minimal ingredients with high nutrition, and obviously online we're a big growing community of hundreds of thousands of pet parents and mainly dog parents wanting to improve their dog's health through nutrition, and a different way of feeding. So rather than feeding your biscuits, feeding the fresh foods and trying to help each other out, what dogs can't have, what they can have, what they need, and a bit of inspiration, and just spreading the message that fresh foods, just like for humans, there's lots of health benefits for dogs also.
Right.
And then so we've been going for about 18 months. And the whole reason this all started, so about firstly, we own 3 dogs. So I've got Border Collie, Kaylin, and 2 Kelpies, Joey and Alki. So one of my first dogs, Joey, was diagnosed with autoimmune disease called Lupus. So the dog's body attacks itself. So my dog, on our socials, we have photos, but it was eating away his nose. So the body was attacking itself, eating his nose away to the point where it started to bleed, and he couldn't control it. So we tried, obviously, taking him to the vet. We got, diagnosed with steroids, prescription kibbles, cream, which worked for a short period, but we found it was only sort of like masking the problem. So we running out of options. We had no options left. Like his nose was, bleeding nonstop. It was really bad. He was in lots of pain, and we were recommended to visit a holistic vet. So holistic vet and also dog nutritionists we talked to. So they promote health through natural remedies, so like through fresh food diets, even like massage and acupuncture.
Oh.
And then, it was all new to us as well. So we just, like most people, think the biscuits have everything you need. And when we told people, like, we had no options, so we gave it a go. We read online that, raw meat can kill, you're going to kill your dog and all this, but running out of options, we just had to go for it. And then slowly, it all sort of started to make sense. As in, I've been a chef and a personal trainer, and I know personally for humans the benefit of fresh food and, exercise, and it has that it plays in health.
Right.
Which was, so we did some acupuncture, got a diet from a holistic vet, and then slowly over the years, my dog's made a full recovery to the point that, people are shocked, and people, say you can't really manage it or cure it. You've just got to sort of deal with it. But we tackled the problem obviously from the inside out rather than from the outside with the creams. Go direct to the source from the inside out. So that's a little bit about how we got here and the story and why I want to spread the awareness of fresh food, isn't as scary as it should be, and it should actually be the main diet for your dogs when done right.
Right. So how's Joey doing now? He's well?
Yeah, he's 95%. So he lost all his colour in his nose. It's just healing over now. So he's made about 95%, almost. Hopefully by the end of the year, he should be very close to 100% recovery. And that's, it's been going for about 6 years to make this recovery. So, yeah,
Wow.
it's a
But
battle
that's
every
good to
day. So,
hear.
like, yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Okay, we have some hellos here from people. Hi, and Kashi, I've seen your question. Just, let me get into the chat a little bit, let him answer some basic questions, and then I'll take up some questions from you guys as we go along. So, Daniel, what exactly is a raw diet, if you want to start with that?
Yeah, so a raw diet, for me, for my dogs, it's, a rotation of fresh foods. So I think a lot of the bad rap from raw diets come from when you're feeding just a mince. So like people just get a plain mince and put it in your dog's bowl and that's it and they walk away. But, it's all about adding as much nutrition to the bowl as possible. So you'd start with like a muscle meat, which is, your beef mince, beef heart, chicken giblets, all the different cuts of meat as a base. 60% of the muscle meat. The more different cuts you put in, obviously the more nutrition it provides. And then you look to add some vegetables. So depending anywhere from 10% to 25%, depending, every dog is different. So personally, I like to feed about 20% vegetables. And then 10% of the diet comes from secreting organs, so like your liver and kidney, which are very high in nutritional value, and also 10% bone content is a basic overview of a raw diet. So yeah, not just putting plain mince in the bowl, but getting as many ingredients together that has nutrition for your dogs. And yeah.
So are you doing this? How do you get the meat, and how are you grinding it yourself, or what are you doing with it?
Yeah, so I think in Australia we're very, very lucky. So I've spoke to people in the States, and obviously a quick chat with you in India. Everywhere's a little bit different. In Australia we're very lucky. So like we've got, you can get your pre-made raw foods from your local pet shops, which are good options as well. Also, you can make it up yourself. So getting each ingredient and preparing it if you've got the time. If you're making big batch, it's a little bit more cost effective than buying the pre-made. But you save a little bit of money, but it takes a bit more time. But both are great options. But I think it's important to rotate between proteins. So don't just feed chicken, don't just feed beef. Feed a range of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what are some of the benefits, since it's not just that you started a company, you've also done this for Joey, and he's had a great success with this. So what do you feel are the benefits of feeding a raw diet to dogs?
I mean, so the first thing that comes to mind is, dogs and even humans, we're made up of like 60-70% of water. So like our body needs to be hydrated, needs to be water. While feeding fresh foods, there's a lot of moisture in it. So your vegetables, your meats, they contain, anywhere from 50% to 60-70% moisture in the foods when eating. So when you compare that to a kibble, which is very dry and, might have 5-10% moisture. So when your dogs process the kibble, it removes hydration from their body, putting them in a dehydrated state. And obviously when your dog's body is dehydrated, you have its liver problems, and your organs don't function as well. So hydration, I've noticed my dogs drink a lot less than having biscuits. And if you are feeding biscuits, it's very, very important, or at least to think about soaking the biscuits before feeding.
Yes.
That way it helps break down the biscuits, keeps your dog hydrated. And if your dog eats the biscuits and then goes have some water after, the biscuits expand in the dog's stomach, and over time, that can cause problems. But yeah, to answer the question, hydration, they're always hydrated, they're drinking a lot less water, which, makes sense over time. Their organs are going to be functioning a lot better. What else? Obviously reduce stools. So I've noticed when I was feeding biscuits many times, like if your dog's stools come out and they smell or they're runny, it's, chemicals leaving the dog's body. They should be very small, firm, a nice color. But like if your dog's farting or the stools, runny, it's a sign that something's not right on the inside. So ever since switching to fresh food, definitely noticed reduced stools, healthier coat. Yeah, just a few things I've definitely noticed when it comes to that.
Yeah, and when you speak about it, right, it just makes sense because it's the same basics for any human being as well. That hydration is important and the impact it's having on your organs. So yeah, so I'm gonna take a couple of questions here. Kashi says, maintaining proportions in respect of muscle, organ, and bone is always an issue for me when I have to feed 5 dogs with different sizes. I now feed on an approximate basis. Is this still better than kibble feeding?
So, can you make? Okay, I've just got up the comment
I
section.
can put it up. Sorry,
okay,
hold on. I can put it up.
Yeah,
here.
I've just clicked over. Yeah, awesome. Maintaining portions. Yeah, so I think the best thing for this question is to make a big batch with the portions you like. So you get your 60%. You make, just say you said you're making it all up yourself. So if you get the 5 kilos, you make 60% muscle meat, 10% organ, 10% bone, and add some vegetables. And then once that base mix is made, you don't need to worry, sort of thing. So rather than, measuring up each time or each meal for each different dog, get the base mix ready, freeze it if you can, and then from there you just need a portion for your dog's weight,
right.
Which sort of will avoid worrying too much. You don't want to be worrying. So if you can have a base mix ready in the freezer or fridge, however often you can make it up, and then just serve to your dog's weight, will avoid that situation.
And he had a follow-up question. He says, how many raw eggs do you recommend for a 30 kg dog?
Yeah, so same thing, feeding fresh foods a rotation. So if you can feed 7 eggs a week, or you can feed 3. So I would probably recommend 3 to 5 a week and rotate. If you can get any other eggs, quail eggs, rotate between different types of eggs. You don't want to overdo things. You don't want to underdo things. So I think feeding fresh food balance is good. So probably 3 to 5 eggs a week would be a good start.
I have a silly question here from my husband. He's saying my German Shepherd likes to eat candies, especially Skittles. Why? I'm going to answer this. I prefer giving him water chestnuts, but he prefers candy. What gives? Karen, stop giving him candy. He doesn't know he's a dog. And okay. Kashi has another question. So he's saying, I freeze my raw meat kilo-wise in a box. How much do I need to thaw the frozen meat before I feed my dogs? Can I give it while it's semi-frozen, or should I thaw it till the meat is separable as pieces?
Yeah, as long as, the thing feeding frozen is if your dog is like a gulper and if you got a frozen block and it's going to swallow it, that's going to become a problem. But if it's frozen and your dog's chewing on it and it's safe, that's semi-frozen's fine as well. So if it's frozen, be careful your dog doesn't gulp and swallow a large amount of frozen meat. But apart from that, that should be all good.
Okay, I have a question here from Vipul. He's saying, what are raw feeding ways as obesity control?
So how do you mean, what are raw feeding ways?
I guess, does it help in controlling obesity, or
Yeah, I mean, better weight control. So obviously lean proteins and vegetables. A lot of these kibbles, not all, but lots have high amounts of, you'll see if you look on the ingredients, you'll see cereals, wheats, whole grains, corns. carbohydrates that, once enter your body, break down to sugars, causing, insulin spikes. And it's a lot easier to control your dog's weight through, lean proteins.
Right.
So, yeah. And if you are feeding biscuits and you're having trouble, just reduce the amount by, 10% a week or so until you see results. But, yeah, obviously just
And I've also
portion
seen,
sizes.
also with age, the dog's metabolism also slows down. So reducing food is not a bad option. I've done it for my dogs. They're both 8 years old. So
Like on
that's
the
helped.
packets.
My lab was gaining weight. So I said, oh, this is not working.
Yeah, exactly. So just on the back of the packets is a guide. So you've just got to feed that's in front of you. Every dog, what we've noticed, every dog is different, just like humans. It's not breed specific. You have all these kibbles coming out with, Labrador, Pacific, et cetera, et cetera. Every dog is an individual. And feed. If it's obese and it says 2 cups on the back of the packet, drop it down a little bit. And a good way to check is obviously when you got your dog, if you can feel their ribs lightly with your hand on their ribs without pushing too hard is, a general guide. If you can feel a layer of, you have to push a little bit harder on the ribs to feel them, then you might want to, reduce a little bit.
Yeah. I see some labs in his picture, so I'm sure he's struggling like me. Although I got it under control now, finally.
That's good.
Okay, I have a question here from Rushi. She's saying, how much chicken meat should she give to a 30 kg dog?
So if you're talking about just chicken meat or just a 30 kilo dog will have about 600 700 grams of fresh food. So depending how you wanted to do that, but 700 grams, 600 to 700 grams a day of fresh food for a 30 kilo dog. An adult dog is a starting point.
Yeah. Okay. Kashi has another question. He's saying, my dog gobbles up chicken head with beak. Is that safe? And chicken feet with nails too?
Generally, yes. There's obviously risks, if it does get stuck. A good way to avoid that is to get a mallet, so a meat mallet, and you can break it down a little bit for your dog if they tend to gulp it. So just get it on the board and break it down a little bit, and that should help out with digestion.
Yeah, but chicken feet are a great source of glucosamine, which is great for their joint health. So I don't think it's like we added it because it's a good source of glucosamine.
Yeah, exactly. There's risks, there's generally safe. There's risks to everything. So,
So I think that's a good idea, to break it down with a mallet and then just to make sure, it goes down smooth, doesn't get stuck anywhere. So, okay, I have a question here from Hirok. He's saying, what are the precautions to be taken before feeding raw meat so that my dog does not get any infection?
So, as you said, it depends on the obviously quality of the meats as well. So, as you said, if your meat's in India kept, at the high temperature and you're not sure about the bacteria, dogs can handle obviously the raw meats and then obviously good gut health. So the healthier the gut of the dog, the more we can process. So, you switch dogs to raw meat who can't handle to gut health. So take things slowly is probably the best advice rather than, just switching with a full bowl. Introduce small amounts, build your, the gut health in your dog, and you'll feel more confident about it as well. So you add a little bit. If nothing, you don't see any side effects, a little bit more and keep adding. But gut health is important. So feeding like probiotics that promote good gut health, raw goat's milk, kefir, fermented veggies, yeah, those sorts of things. But make sure the meat's fresh, and then if you haven't fed meat before, introduce it slowly.
Yeah. Do you know, Daniel? I don't know. I'm asking you before I put up this question. So, do you know about fasting in dogs? Are you aware of it?
Yeah,
A little bit.
yeah, I do it occasionally.
Uh-huh.
What should we do
Because
frequency?
yeah, so I'm just gonna read it out for our
Yep.
viewers. Vipul is asking, what should be the frequency of fasting in a month? For example, a Weimaraner puppy can be fasted for a day in a week. A Rottweiler 3 years old can be fasted thrice a month. A Lab 12 years old can be fasted 2 times a month. So I guess those are his three
Um,
dogs.
yeah, I mean, puppy. I'm not sure if I'm uh, not sure if I'd recommend fasting a puppy.
Uh-huh.
Um, just as they're growing so fast, they need as much nutrients as possible. But yeah, occasionally I mix it up with my dogs as well. Once, as you said, once or twice a week, I'll give them a big bone, and that's all they'll get for the 24-hour period. But
Mhm.
yeah, and just every dog is different as well. So if you, it's also good to change up the habits with the dog. And then yeah, I've read a little bit into the health benefits of fasting, which I'm not an expert on, but yeah, I give it a go,
Yeah.
and I've definitely been paying a little bit of attention to it. But yeah, so I sort of give them on bone day, give them a bit of a bigger bone, and that will sort of last them for 24 hours. Um, so yeah, and gives their digestive system a little bit of a break too.
Right.
Constantly eating is good. Feeding twice a day is good, but it's also good to have a little break also.
Right. And we have another question here from Kashi saying, do you recommend washing the raw meat before freezing, or blood-soaked meat can be directly frozen?
Yeah, in Australia, there's no problems with it. All the hemoglobin from the meat that's come out is, it's got nutrients, it's
Mhm.
got value. So washing it away is, as long as it's off and it's fresh, it's definitely fine to keep with frozen.
Yeah, again, guys, please be careful of your source of your meat. I think that's the key here for a raw diet. Make sure you know where
Mm-hmm.
you're getting your meat from and how it's been handled before you start giving it. Vipul says, how much chicken feet is sufficient for a day meal?
Yeah, so it depends. Did you say your dog's weight? Yeah, it depends on the dog's weight. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it varies.
I mean, I personally just boil and make a soup out of it and just add that to the food that they're getting. So, I mean, I do like one chicken uh, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, bone should take,
yeah,
to answer the question, bone should take up about 10% of the diet. So
yeah.
roughly 15%. Um, yeah.
Hey, my mom-in-law is here. Hi, mom. She's saying, would you feel that there is a temperament change in a dog when put on a raw food?
Yeah, my dogs have been happier and more relaxed. Obviously, it's not, you have to look carefully, and it's not for every dog, but
Hmm.
just like humans, if you're eating high carb diets, so, a lot of these kibbles over half carbohydrates, which break into the sugars, so they're going to be more up and down and more not, the energy is not going to last as long. So my dogs, have definitely had a longer lasting energy. But with temperament, they don't get aggressive. So there's that you feed raw meat to your dogs, they're going to, start attacking you. Yeah, it doesn't work like so yeah, only positives I've noticed switching to fresh food.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go back to our chat for a bit and come back to your questions. Since we have a few topics to cover, and your question might get answered there already. So, Daniel, at what age can we start feeding a raw diet to our dogs?
At what age? So whenever they can eat any other foods, whenever you're thinking about putting on to kibble, whatever canned food you want, they can start with fresh food. You know, it's never too early as long as they can have foods.
Yeah.
To feed good nutritional foods. So yeah, at a very young age, obviously starting out, you would want, you know, your very, very early, so whatever, 6 to 8 weeks, have it, you know, blended fine. Start with like a raw goat's milk and a plain mince, and introduce things slowly as you go. But yeah, as when they're able to have any other foods, they can definitely have fresh food, raw food.
Right. And raw is
Yeah.
not just meat, right? Like you said, raw is also vegetables that they can
Yeah,
start
so
having.
raw.
So it's,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
different names. So raw feeding, you know, it's also fresh food, a fresh food diet, which is probably a better way. So, but even if you want to introduce cooked food as well, I think as fresh as possible as you can. Obviously, I've seen amazing benefits with the raw fresh food. But for whatever reason you do want to do cooked food, it's still going to be a lot better than heavily processed kibble that's been
sugar.
heated many times at extreme temperatures. So
Okay. And so is there any difference, what do you do for puppies versus adult dogs?
so obviously puppies are growing at a very quick rate compared to adult dogs. So the main thing to think about is calcium and phosphorus levels. So calcium is important because every cell in the body depends on calcium. So if your puppy is calcium deficient and is not sending enough calcium to the cells, the body won't continue to grow, and you'll run into problems there. And then the phosphorus will keep the bones healthy, growing of the teeth. So I guess to answer the question, the important things are there's enough calcium, so feeding whole bones like ground bones, lots of bones to the puppy, and also enough meat. So like chicken wings, a good balance to puppies is like feeding like chicken wings. So there's good amounts of meat on there, there's good amounts of bones. So that's one thing to consider, and then also feeding fattier cuts of meat help as well. So puppies growing, rather than feeding your lean meats, they can get away with a little bit of extra fat, extra calories to support the growth. But those are the couple of main things to consider.
Yeah. And like for treats, I've heard you can even give like raw vegetables like carrots to chew on to puppies and to adult dogs as well. So do you recommend that?
Yeah, so carrots, it depends. So like carrots are great. With vegetables, obviously you've got two options, obviously feeding raw or feeding cooked. So both are good. So things to consider, if you're feeding raw, there's nothing wrong with feeding a whole carrot. That's great. There's lots of worse things in the world. But obviously blending raw vegetables so they're nice and fine help the dog's body digest it easier and get more nutrition out of it. Or if they're cooked vegetables, you can leave them a little bit larger because they've already started to break down in the cooking process. But for feeding whole carrots, it's it's not going to be the end of the world. But definitely, if you can blend vegetables, if they're going to be raw, fine. Or if they're going to cook them lightly, they can be left a little bit larger. And even things like pumpkin, sweet potatoes, mushrooms, they're all going to be better cooked. So, you want to break down the cell walls of the vegetables. Breaking the cell walls of the vegetables, will help with digestion, help with nutrient absorption in the dog's body.
Okay, makes sense. And what about senior dogs? So if a dog has been on kibble all its life, and can you switch over to a raw diet for a senior dog?
Yeah, so as I said, every dog is different. What if your dog in this situation, if your dog is, senior, let's say 12, 10, 12 plus, and it's
Mhm.
been on all its life, probably I would recommend introducing lightly cooked foods first. So like a lightly cooked protein, like a meat,
Yeah.
with some vegetables. Why? Because cooking cooking the meats, obviously you lose a little bit of nutritional value, but it helps break it down. And once broken down, it's a little bit easier on the dog's digestive system to process rather than just raw meat. And then,
Right.
so slowly work up with a lightly cooked diet. If your dog gets to a point after a month or two that it can have a full bowl of lightly cooked meal, and you want to introduce it to raw food, do the same process again. So have your stable diet that it can handle and introduce, just tiny amounts like 5%
Yeah.
a day, 10%, 15, and work up over a couple of weeks. Take your time. It's important not to rush,
Right.
add little bits and see how your dog goes. There's nothing worse than, you don't want to just dump a whole meal that you're not sure your dog can have and then have problems, which puts you a step behind because it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, in continuation of what you were saying for seniors, what are the things we should be watching out for when we're switching to a raw diet? So, like, basically, do it gradually for sure. And
Yeah, do it.
go ahead.
Yeah, so do it gradually. I think that's the main thing. So do it gradually. You can do it one ingredient at a time. So make sure your dog, dogs sometimes like fussy, or find something your dog is liking and then
Mhm.
work around that. So if your dog likes beef mince, and you want to introduce something it doesn't like, let's just say vegetables, just add a tiny little bit of vegetables hidden. um, a lot of people, I guess the most common thing is my dog won't eat this or won't eat that. You just need to really start really slow, just so they don't even know it's there, and just work up.
Yeah.
And what was just recap me off the question? What to keep an
How
eye
to
out?
switch? Yeah, how to switch to a raw diet? Like, what
Yeah,
are
so
the precautions to be taken, basically?
just introducing food slowly, and then bones is another big one. So supervising when feeding bones is important,
Yes.
and then you are gonna feed a bone where they're comfortable with. So if you feed them in a crate, feed them in a crate. Don't just put them somewhere where they're with other dogs where they're going to want to gulp it down and get rid of it quickly. So just bones are a big one. So you always want to be supervising when feeding bones.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to some questions because they're piling up a bit. So,
Mm-hmm.
Vipul is saying, I regularly travel with my dogs. They were on my honeymoon also. That's great, Vipul. I face issues when I travel with them as kibble is the only option you get outside your town in India, which is true. What are the solutions to avoid stomach upset while traveling? Thanks.
So they want to know what else they can do while traveling with no
Yeah,
raw.
like is there a solution to raw food while traveling? Because changing a diet, like you were saying, does upset the dog's stomach.
Yes,
Suddenly
yes.
they're eating raw and they switch to kibble. So what can
Mm-hmm.
you do
So
while
yeah,
traveling?
what can you do while you're traveling? Obviously, so you have your kibble, which is your standard kibble, which is processed many times. Then you've got your next step across, which is air dried. So rather than put together through high temperatures, it's air dried and combined, which keeps more nutrition. And then the next step across is freeze dried. So freeze dried's this what you can do. I'm not sure about the supply in India, or if it's available, but I know in Australia and other places in the world, freeze dried is a great option. So you just sort of rehide. It's been freeze dried, no heat to make it, and you wake it up through warm water, and it sort of keeps a lot of nutrition. But also, adding tin sardines is another good option. What else?
So, Vipul, I mean, I'll add something here, Daniel. DogSpot also has DogSpot meals. So if you go to the DogSpot website, you
Awesome.
can start
Yeah.
ordering them, and they're pre-packaged. They're easy to travel with. You can take them, and they're well balanced. They've been made consulting dog nutritionists and everything. So you can take a look at that, and they're already packaged, pre-packaged, so you can even travel with them. That
Yeah,
might work out
perfect.
for you. Yeah.
That's
We
good.
have a
Yes.
question here from Shreya. She's asking, can you share something about Dalmatians diet? Now puppy, 5 months old.
Yeah, so Dalmatians, they need a low purine diet. So getting, even like adding you wouldn't want to be feeding the secreting organs like liver and kidney, reducing the little bit of amount of muscle meat and including, lentils, even like hemp seeds, kelp powder, eggs, all great options. But yeah, if you do a search on, they obviously need a low purine diet, and just so avoid your livers and kidneys and high amounts, and look for other options that contain nutritional value through like powders and lentils and vegetables. Yeah.
Sounds good. Another question from Kashi, who's saying, apologies for bombarding this session. No problem, Kashi. We're happy to have you. How do you thaw the frozen meat out of the freezer? I was given to understand that when you expose the frozen meat to thaw, isn't there a chance of bacterial infection in open air contamination?
Yes, there is. I mean, so obviously defrosting, if you can defrost something in the fridge
Yes.
till it's, is the safest way. So if you've frozen something fresh and you're defrosting it just as you would anything else, it's just about reducing. You can't avoid it completely. So it's about taking as much care as possible, freezing it as quick as possible, as fresh as possible, then taking it out and letting it defrost. So whether you portion that up in smaller portions when you put into the freezer is a good idea, or so obviously not leaving it out or in the sink. If you can cross through the fridge at the slowest rate possible, will lead to the less bacteria build up.
Well, one of the safest ways to do it is night before, just move the food from the freezer to the fridge and let it remain there overnight. And I think usually by next day it should be good to go for you. So and you don't have as much bacterial growth because it's still temperature controlled.
Yeah.
So, I mean, temperature is a huge issue in India for us. We get really hot over here.
Yeah, and then obviously make sure it's airtight container as well if you can, just reduce as much as possible. And then that's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, Jayashree here has a question. She's saying, is feeding raw chicken or meat good option?
Yeah, so lean meats is a good option. As I said before, you don't want to just be feeding a bowl of raw chicken. It's you can add some here and there, but you want your vegetables, you want your other cuts of meat. So and rotate between them all. But if you just say you're feeding biscuits and you go down to the shops and you see some chicken that's available, adding it to your dog's bowl, a little bit of chicken is great option of fresh. But as I said, don't just feed raw chicken over and over again. But adding raw chicken is great, and other meats is great.
Now, so I'll tell you, we have a problem here with meat. Most common is mutton, which is goat, chicken, and then we can get a lot of fish. So what do you say about fish? How to add that? because we don't get beef is not available in India, and neither
Sure.
is sheep or lamb. So
Okay. Yeah, so fish is good. Things to think about when feeding fish is the mercury poisoning. So just your
yeah,
standard, you want to be feeding your fish, before we jump into that, feeding fish 2 to 3 times a week, fish, which is a good start. And then out of that fish, you've got, sardines are great. Not sure, you guys have mussels there?
not everywhere. They're available in the coastal part of India, but not in
Mm-hmm.
the north as much.
Sure.
So,
So
but we get
mussels are good.
canned tuna is fairly available.
Yeah, so tuna and salmon are great too. And then that leads into, if you're feeding 2 or 3 times a week,
Right.
that's great. If you start feeding your dog the tuna, 6 or 7 times a week, you want to do your research on mercury poisoning. So the larger fishes contain high amounts of mercury, which over time can build up in your dog's body, which is the main thing to avoid. But feeding 2 or 3 times a fish, most fishes are good, and you'll avoid the mercury buildup.
Makes sense. Jayashree, I hope that answers your next question as well. So I'm going to go to Rushi, who's saying, which vegetable do you prefer to add with chicken?
Mm-hmm. Which vegetables? So leafy greens are good for humans, are just as good
Yeah.
for dogs. Any leafy greens are great, and they mostly can be fed raw or just lightly steamed. Is good too. And then you've got your carrots, cauliflower, broccoli, beans, pumpkin. You can add, which is great for fiber. Pumpkin should be cooked as well. Corn is a bit of a no-no. It doesn't break down
Oh,
it's just so hard for the dog's body to break down whole corn. So probably avoid corn. But yeah, leafy greens, any vegetables you're having, capsicums, mushrooms are all good for the dogs. They're just, packed with nutritional value. So yeah,
yeah.
basic tries. Yeah, try them all.
Yeah. This is his Instagram handle, Chefs and Dogs, which I think is fantastic. And there's a lot of, I mean, I've gone through his Instagram feed. It's fantastic. You can get a lot of information there as well. He keeps updating, and you can get to see his great dogs as well. So I'm gonna go back to the chat a little bit
Yeah,
because
and
it's
if
really late
any,
for you in Australia, isn't it?
pardon, it's different.
I said,
Yeah.
no, I said it's really late for you, right,
Oh,
in the
very
night.
late. Yes, 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 yes. It's 12:30 a.m. But no, it's been good. Um, we appreciate you
Oh,
guys having us on. So thank you. Yes.
no, thank you. It's a great, informative session. We're learning a lot, so it's always good. So what is I'm gonna ask you this, what is the basic recipe do you recommend, for people who are trying it for the first time without getting overwhelmed? How can you start working on a recipe for your dog?
hmm So obviously you can start by adding little things before you want to take the steps. So some people just want to add whatever, might be budget reasons or whatever reason.
Hmm.
Add things like eggs, as you said, tin fish. You can always add straight away to your diet. Greek yogurts, kefirs, vegetables are a good start. And then if you want to slowly transition into a full raw diet, I think, as I mentioned before, so you want to make a base recipe that you can keep and that you feel comfortable with. That isn't just plain meat, so plain mince. So to
Right.
follow, yeah, so like 60% muscle meat,
Mhm.
and then 20% vegetables, 10% offal, so like liver and kidney, and 10% bone. So that's the base mix, and then obviously from there you'll add your fish a couple of times a week. You can add eggs. You can add, make your bone broths for your dogs. You can add those in too. You can add seeds, so like hemp seeds. They all contain good fats. Chia seeds. What else do we have? And then things for like good gut health, so like probiotics, and then you can play around with your vegetables as well, do fermenting them, and that sort of stuff.
Interesting. So, is there any vegetables that are big no-no for the dogs? Like you said, corn. Is there anything else?
With no, potatoes are not they're okay. Potatoes, so probably lean towards sweet potatoes, but on the top of my head, yeah, mainly corn to avoid. But yeah, and then obviously with fruits, I haven't spoken much about fruits, but fruits, 1% of the dog's diet is good as well. And then obviously avoiding grapes and is important when feeding fruit. So no grapes for your dogs.
And no apple seeds as well, right? Because I read they contain cyanide, which can be harmful
Small
to
amounts
dogs.
is fine. Yeah, it can be small amounts of apple seeds are fine. It's a bit of a misconception. I wouldn't be feeding handfuls of apple seeds, but a couple to your dog won't have any problems.
Okay. There's a question here from Gusa Olive. I'm just going to speak to them for a second because there's not enough information. If you can tell us what your husky is currently eating and, how often, I think then I can put up your question for Daniel because I don't think he can answer with what you've written right now. So just send in another comment while we're talking. Daniel, what are some common myths around raw diet? This you must get a lot.
Yeah, so like the common myths, it's obviously that, you need kibble to clean your dog's teeth and that sort of stuff. So, fresh, I guess one I hear is, kibble, cleans your dog's teeth. With, obviously what's important to keep healthy teeth for your dog is saliva in the mouth. So if your dog's eating anything, regardless, obviously if it's going to be biscuits and it's dry, so that when it's dry and there's no moisture in the mouth, the buildup becomes on the teeth. So that's the benefit of feeding fresh foods with moisture. There's obviously your teeth stay cleaner because there's moisture in the mouth. So yeah, I've heard that you have to have kibble for cleaning teeth. But yeah, it's actually the opposite. Feeding food with moisture and bones when dogs chew on bones, or you're feeding. I'm not sure if you guys do it much, but like you have the toys that you stuff food in, and they sort of take their time to get it out. So that extra time creates saliva in the mouth, which obviously washes away the food from their mouth, which is good to do. Other myths that the raw your dog will get aggressive, which sort of isn't true. And then it's hard to balance raw foods. So it's another false one. So another thing you guys can do if you do want to learn more about balancing fresh foods is speak to a holistic vet or dog nutritionist. I'm not sure the situation in India with them, but lots of places do online consults at the moment. So you can probably have an online consult to anyone around the world, and they'll make sure your meals are complete and balanced to make it a little bit easier for you if you aren't confident or aren't sure. Has anyone got any myths or rumors in the chat that they've heard that might want to be answered? So yeah, no chocolate either.
Yeah, that's the question. He's saying, what about chocolate? Absolutely not. It's toxic for dogs.
Yeah.
And we have a question here from Shreya who says, eggs can be fed raw? Question mark.
Yeah, so as long as, they're high quality and fresh, eggs can be fed to your dog raw. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, again, Shreya, be careful of your source, especially in India, because, of our temperature and mishandling that can happen with it. So as long as you're confident, there are a lot of farms now that are providing organic eggs and are, standing by their product. So if you know someone who takes care, I mean, I'm sure you don't have anything to worry.
Yeah.
And
And saying that,
Jenny,
if you aren't sure,
do you feed the eggshell as well, or just the
yeah, I
inside
feed eggshell. Yes, yeah. So
eggshell?
same with eggshell as well. You need to be careful. It's from a good source. It's not
Yeah.
chemically sprayed and all that. But yeah, eggshell contains calcium, and then finely grind it up and sprinkle it on the food. But yeah, I think the main thing, as we've mentioned a few times, is the source is high quality and you're confident with it. It's not off, and it's as fresh as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of my dogs, he loves the eggs with shells on, and he like actually paw you for it. And the other one is such a snob; he won't even look at it. He like peel it for me, and I wasn't sure if I should be giving it or not. Okay, and last thing before we let you go, I know it's really late again for you. So, are there any risks involved while feeding a raw diet?
Any risks? Yeah. So the risk obviously comes from, if you want to get good quality meat. Another one that we touched on previously, supervised when feeding bones.
Yes.
And then also, it's good as well to, regardless of feeding raw or not, you can get blood tests done for your dog too. So whether you want to do that yearly or every few years, blood tests are a good way to see how everything's going with your dog, regardless. But yeah, introduce food slowly, enjoy it. Food should be fun, shouldn't be just, reaching into a bag and chucking into the dog's bowl. See what your dog enjoys. And, it's, after all, it's just fresh food, so done correctly, introducing slowly, it shouldn't be scary. And if you do have any questions of if my dog can eat that or this, just send us a Instagram message, and then we can obviously help out more or direct you to someone that can help you through it all.
All right. There are no more questions, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for a
Awesome.
great informative session. We learned a lot today. And guys, his Instagram handle is up on the screen. It's at Chefs and Dogs on Instagram. So you can go follow him, or like he said, you can send him some questions there directly if you're interested in learning more about raw food diets. And we also had a pet nutritionist on our Dogspot channel. So if you go to our videos on Facebook, you can find her, and she did a lot of recipes that you can do for your dogs. And you can look that up also if you're interested in this. Thanks, Daniel. Great having you
Awesome.
here.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Nice
Bye.
to meet you guys. And speak soon.
See you. Bye.